All right, welcome back. You're watching Liquid Lunch on Biz TV. It's a Freaky Friday edition, and every Friday we try to bring you the best guests every single day. But every Friday we're lucky enough to have one of the best in the business, and Michael Johns joins us as he does every Friday to go over so much going on out there. Mike, I guess we just saw a tale of two cities. The Democratic convention was kind of, to me, taped, old, low rent, low quality, low production, and the whole RNC looked like a, pageant, a gala. It was beautiful. Even the sole speakers in the empty room, it felt, live and vivacious and colorful. What do you think, just to compare the two conventions in your view? You've seen a lot of them.
Yeah. Well, I thought the RNC was exceptionally well done, and particularly the president's acceptance speech, which I honestly I labeled one of the better acceptance speeches of modern times in my view. I mean, he went, and partly it was so successful because he had so much substance to work with. He had, the litany of accomplishments is so easy to forget, particularly when we're in this pandemic situation with the street riots. But when you go through it, it's really checking off boxes and promises he made in 2016. And then you go and look at the Democrat convention, and I think what you really took away from that was the two things that were lacking were, number one, really any substantive discussion of their policy plans. You have the Tax Foundation coming out with an analysis of the Biden plan that says this is going to, take a big chip out of our GDP, out of jobs, be negative in almost all respects. They really didn't talk much about those details. And the other thing I thought that was really lacking, John, was the Biden himself. I mean, it was almost like they brought him out when they had to bring him out. He was not highlighted through the week, and I think that's a reflection that the 47-year career of this man is fairly unremarkable. It's remarkable in his ability to achieve positional authority. It's unremarkable from the standpoint of anything he accomplished in these high-level positions.
Yeah, what's really remarkable is that somewhere around 45% of Americans think he's the better choice, and it sure seemed like their convention was more focused on Trump screwed up the pandemic, Trump's a liar, Joe Biden isn't a liar, he's a good old grandpa, and he'll bring us back to some sanity. What they forgot was Kamala Harris was the co-sponsor of the Green New Deal, so that's one of the most progressive plans out there. Joe Biden's tax plan is looking at like $4 trillion in new taxes, bringing us higher than China's corporate tax once again, and basically taking us again off the competitive stage globally, and at the same time regressing us to no fossil fuels, higher taxes, government health care for all. So they really can't highlight their platform because that would show everybody what they're really about.
Yeah, that's what I've been saying. I think when you dive into the substance of all of these policies, they're job killing, they're wage deflating, and they assimilate the United States basically into just another country of the world, removing a lot of our exceptionalism. And then you actually, I don't know if you took any time to read any of the DNC platform. You get into like their coronavirus plan on school reopenings. It's like point one, get the pandemic under control. Like, gee, thanks a lot. I think like an 8th grade civics student could have probably written that thing. I mean, it totally lacks any degree of substantive recognition.
Right. Yeah.
The challenge here basically is that we've got the president who had like an impeccable 3 years, and then these two curveballs thrown at us, both of which were, in my judgment, like it hasn't really been labeled this way, but they were political assaults from the Chinese Communist Party that consciously unleashed this pandemic. That fact needs to be drilled home and established. I don't get the sense that it has been. I've got, media questioning me when I'm stating that as a fact. They're like, really? Is that true? Has that been established? Yes, it's true. It's been established. I'd like to see the administration come out with maybe some details on that. And then obviously this street violence is all an entire product of both far left funding and the Democrat mayors that refuse to enforce the rule of law. And I think the president was right last night to say, if you like the kind of way that looks, that's the way the country will look largely, because they're not inclined to police their own people, and they will politicize justice. All in all, I thought it was a very compelling speech. One of the best lines I think he had was this one that said, how can they ask to lead our country when they spend so much time tearing our country down? I think that resonates with people who have seen that they've had nothing positive to say really about the direction of the country or the country itself in this political season so far.
Right. So you know, and I'm with you. I actually was thinking, wow, that was one of the more powerful lines, because you actually can have, like, it creates like a vision in your head, like, you know what I mean? They want to be in front, but when they're in front, all they're talking about is how terrible America is. So they want to lead us down a path to destruction, to lawlessness. I keep saying, they say they're progressives, but they're actually regressing. That's what they want. They want our country to go backwards.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt about it. And, you know, fortunately, in the case of Biden, you got 8 years to go by. And, you know, we had the lowest labor participation rate since the 70s. You had the lowest home ownership in 51 years. 11 million more Americans were on food stamps at the end of the 8 years of Obama-Biden. And, you know, for all of the talk about what they were going to do for the poor in this country, 6 million more at the poverty level, 43 million in poverty at the end of the Obama Biden administration. So the president does have the good fortune of saying, this guy had his shot, here's what he's done. And that is to say, he made the poor poorer, the rich did get richer, and the middle class were decimated. The forgotten man and woman was defined and created in those 8 years of the Obama-Biden administration. And I think those people are ready to roar again in 2020 in support of President Trump.
Yeah, I like when about a week ago Trump said, if it wasn't for Obama, I wouldn't be here. You know what I mean? And that's kind of you know,
Right.
cataclysm of what you were just saying. You know, you got 8 years to look at. Joe Biden was the number 2 man. And even in his endorsement, Obama said, you know, Joe was the last man in the room. Joe was the last voice I heard. Joe. So as much as they say the vice president, you don't vote for a vice president, he's been implicated as Barack Obama's right-hand man, and we have a body of work to look at even beyond the 47 years.
And yet Obama was very slow to endorse him. I think he was almost secretly hoping he would not be the nominee. He waited to the last absolute moment, and then it wasn't issued with a lot of enthusiasm. You know, I think the fact is, that's, I think, also reflecting the fact you get 59% of the country that doesn't believe this man and Joe Biden is physically or mentally fit to complete a 4-year term. That's pretty incredible, and I think it becomes difficult to go out and vote for a guy who sort of falls in that category that a majority of Americans consider him unprepared, and slightly over 50% consider Kamala Harris unqualified to be president of the United States.
You know, I guess the Democrats try to do some counter programming, like Trump was coming on every night during theirs, and he was kind of competing with them in the ratings. Kamala, I believe, spoke last night, and it was like a non-event, big nothing burger. I don't think, if you just, you know, for those independents and those moderate Democrats who don't want to go flying all the way to the left, I think you look even at the 2 conventions and see what the people on the RNC side are talking about is America's greatness, jobs back to America, manufacturing. And even moderate Dems got to say, man, I want cops, safety, security, work, jobs, lower taxes. Right. I think they did themselves a heck of a lot of good last night and this whole week.
Well, the dilemma here is there's a lot of questions that really need to be asked of Joe Biden that aren't being asked. I mean, number one, on this China ban, you know, he opposed it on January 31, so we would have allowed infected individuals to continue to come in the U.S. At what point, what date specifically would he potentially, you know, ultimately agreed that President Trump was right to put that ban? And he has literally no policy on the southern border. You know, we have 11 to 30 million illegals. At what point would that be problematic for him? At 40 million, 50 million, 60 million, 70 million? I mean, is there any number of illegals that would ultimately get Joe Biden's attention where he would say, you know, this actually is not constructive, you know, for the country? He put us back in the Iran agreement. I mean, and this Paris agreement, where basically China is exempted from any financial responsibility for resolving the environmental challenges of the world, it's utterly ridiculous. And it's part of this managed decline process that has guided Washington for way too long. I think this is such an obvious choice for the American people, and yet we're up against people that are very good at spinning tales and messaging, and also a media that just has got so much distaste for this president. I just couldn't believe the coverage of what I thought was really an extraordinary speech last night.
Yeah, me too. I thought it was great. All right, we got to leave it there, Mike. Mike was one of the co-founders of the Tea Party movement. Let's not forget that. Also, policy analyst and writer, former speechwriter for George H.W. Bush. So when he talks about the speech being one of the best of all time, take it from someone who knows. Mike, thanks so much. We really appreciate it. We'll check in with you next week.
Have a good one, Jason.